Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining. Today, I have the absolute pleasure of interviewing Alexa Bruce, who is a zero waste professional organizer based in San Francisco. And Alexa and I met last fall at a friend's wedding, and we started talking all things organizing and business. And she mentioned that she had a career interest in organizing. And so we've worked on a couple of projects since. And so I'm really excited to bring her on today and just open up her vast knowledge about search engine optimization, something that those three little words just scare me half to death. So prior to joining the world of organizing, Alexa actually spent a number of years working in customer support and project management at Google, which is really cool. And one of her responsibilities was to work with support.google.com and their content writers to make sure that customers could find help content when they were searching for it. Makes sense. I need help. I want to make sure the content's available. Given that the algorithms have most likely changed since she's worked there, we're not going to dive too much into the complex aspects of search engine optimization, but you'll want to hire a professional for that. But today we are really going to talk about her tried and true basics of SEO, and you should be able to do these yourself. So welcome, Alexa. I am so glad to have you here.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
I am pumped. Okay, so let's just start with a really simple definition of what is SEO and why is it important?
Sure. So I think to start off, when I was talking to a friend about this, she was like, well, I think you really want to think about your business. And do you get business based on word of mouth referrals, or do you think people are searching for you? So I think that's one thing to think about before you decide how much time you want to invest. Is how people are going to find you. But if you do think that there are people on the internet searching for your services or your product, then you definitely want to dive in and figure it out. And so search engine optimization is really about making your website easy for the search bot, that thing that goes through the internet and reads the pages, to understand. And so the key thing here is that you want to be considered a reputable source of information for the product you're selling, the information you're giving out, or the service you have to provide, because that's really how you're going to show up in those top results. And so this is a really key point. And so the reputable aspect is, one, are there other websites that are linking to you that are also reputable? So it's like you go out and you ask friends, hey, where should we go to dinner tonight? And they give you 5 different recommendations and you've asked 10 friends. Well, the one that comes up the most is probably the place you'll go to dinner if you like that type of food. So you want to be considered popular. And how are you considered popular? If you create great content. So just like the restaurant example, if you have terrible food and terrible service, you're not going to get recommended. But if you're writing great content on your website that has something to offer, or you're offering great products or a great service, then people are going to say like, hey, go check out this website. They've got good things to offer.
I love that you said that you want to be popular. I'd never thought of it that way before, but it grounds it in a way that makes sense. And it's like, oh, okay, that. And also when you're in a business, let's say you're doing some PR work and you're on a TV show or you're in a magazine or whatever, I could see that as an easy opportunity to have them link back to your website, for example.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is one way. You get interviewed by a local newspaper, then they're going to link to your website. Maybe someone writes a blog about the service you're offering, they link to your website. So these are the ways that we create these links into the website. But before that can even happen, you want to be creating really good content on your website and have something that people want to link to. And one thing to mention here with these links is you never want to pay anyone to link to your website. It's an absolute no-no. And you can get taken out of the search results entirely for doing this. So be careful with that one.
I've never even heard of this. This just could be me being naive, but I guess there are services out there that you can pay and they'll link to you. It's bizarre.
Yes, I've heard that there are as well. Yes. Yeah.
So why does SEO feel so overwhelming? I mean, one of the reasons that I haven't looked at it and or done anything is that it just gives me so much anxiety.
Yeah, I think you're not alone. It's a hard topic. I think probably one of the big reasons is all the jargon.
Mhm.
So you've got words like algorithm, search bot, meta description, alt tags. Like, what are these things? And until you start diving in, and really, I think you have to take a deep, deep breath and not let your anxiety take over when you're reading all this and feeling like, I don't get this, I feel stupid. Just go, yeah, this is hard, and I'm going to take some time and read through this. So, um, and the second thing is, I think like we aren't the search bots. We see the web page in a very different way than the bot sees it. So this bot I think of as, I don't know, like a little animal running through the search result pages, and it goes through and it doesn't see images. It sees this thing called alt text. And that's the words you use to describe that image. So when the bot comes across an image of maybe you organizing or at an estate sale, you put the word estate sale there and it goes, oh, it's a picture of an estate sale. Okay, this page has something to do with estate sales. So I think that's a big part of it. The second big part is we don't exactly know what words our customers are using to find us. So oftentimes we get so close to our product and our services, or the way we think about our product and our service, and it's not the way the customer thinks.
Yeah.
And so, for example, when I was looking at the website for one of the companies that I work with, so we do zero waste home organizing. We know what zero waste home organizing is, but do people search for that? We had no idea. And so this was something that I went to look at. Maybe people think of it as green home organizing, or something else. So it's trying to understand how your customers think about your service as well, because those are the words you're going to want to integrate into your page. Because if they're searching for green home organizing and you're using zero waste offloading, they're never going to find you.
Right.
So that's a key point as well. So yeah, if you think about like your site and what you're trying to offer, like what words come up for you?
Gosh, and I think this is the hard part, where we tend to be so detail oriented in our own business. And one, we're not very literal like the bot. I think of it like a little Pac-Man.
Yeah, that's great. That is great.
He's like going through my website and he's very literal. But with customers or potential customers, more than likely they're searching for a solution or like an answer to a question. And I'm trying to think about this by way of how I search. Super simple example, but yesterday I was searching, is bicarb soda the same as baking soda? And of course someone had searched that before, but these are trying to think of ways that I use Google and then interjecting different words or questions to help come up with what someone might be looking for my website. And one thing that I really want to point out is, with website design, you can do it yourself. There are plenty of platforms in which you can do that. My current site is on Squarespace, but before that, I had paid a designer, $2,000 to $4,000 to design my site. But they just designed it. It wasn't optimized, and they're not the same person. And so it's not necessarily like, what's the point in paying someone all that money to design, but you do need to have some understanding of the SEO to make sure that people can find you. Because it is a little bit, what's the point? Like, what's the point in putting your flag in the little corner of the internet and then no one can find you?
Totally. Yeah, and I think you bring up a really good point here, is the site may look beautiful, but because the bot sees it in a very different way, unless you're filling in these sort of key attributes that it's looking for, it's not going to understand it the way that we understand it when we look at it.
That's so true. Oh, I hadn't thought about that. Like, the bot doesn't care that it's pretty. No,
the bot looks at all this mumbo jumbo that we look at and go, ew, I know what that means.
Yes, yes. Okay, so how do you know if your site is optimized?
I mean, I guess you show up on the first page for when people are looking for you, but of course that's really hard to do. So I'm being a little facetious here.
But it's a good point, because even like you could, I'm guessing, like let's say you're watching this and it's like, well, I don't know if my site's optimized. So you can try searching different things and then seeing where you show up in those search results.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah, that's great. There is some thought that Google does personalize our results for us. So because of this, if you are visiting your site a lot, then it knows you like to go there, so it will show up higher. So you may see some differences in what the average person will see.
Okay.
And at the end, when we do some demo stuff, we can talk a little bit about this thing called incognito window, which is one way of getting around that.
Okay. Wow. Okay, so how do you find out your SEO formula?
So there isn't really one score that is handed out. Like here, like when we got grades in school, here you got a 91%. You're doing great. And yeah, so it is hard. It's hard to know. But I think there's a bunch of different tools you can use to understand what's going on.
Okay.
So the first thing you can do is, once you have an understanding, and we'll go through that later, of like the different aspects of the page you want to change, you can right click on a page and then use this thing called Views Page Source. And this allows you to see basically what the bot is seeing and how it understands your page. And it looks like mumbo jumbo, another language, code. But this is really what the bot's using. And then in addition, depending on how you set up your website, so I've looked a little bit at Squarespace. I think Wix has some information. Those tools themselves will guide you through the process, and they have help pages that explain where to go to change certain elements of your page. So then the code of the page is set up well. Then also you've got a couple of tools put out by the search engines themselves. So there's the Google Search Console and Bing Webmaster Tools. And these can be quite overwhelming, I would say at first. So have patience with yourself, be kind to yourself when you're diving into them. But they're really useful for tracking progress and understanding where your site is positioned for certain keywords, how many clicks you're getting, all of this sort of stuff. They give you a ton of data that's really interesting.
And I think you had mentioned this before when we were talking about search engine, but based on like headers, does it read information, words differently based on how they're formatted?
Yeah, so you're talking about sort of the structure of the page, those headers. Yeah. So that's one interesting part of the page. So the title is the most important part.
Okay.
And then underneath that, if you think about it, like back in grade school when we were taught to write essays, they would have us make an outline at first. So you had your title, and then you had like your 2 big points, and then below that you had some other points. So these headers are those main points. And the words you use in those are also important, because the bot goes through and it says, oh, H1, header 1, that's the most important header. This page appears to be about professional organizing, because in the H1 it says professional organizing. And then there's another header with these other words about our services. So they're offering professional organizing services. And so these are important places to think about as well, are these headings or headers.
Yeah, because if I think about Pac-Man, he's not going to be able to eat everything at the same level. So he's like, oh, this is a big cherry. I'm going to eat this one. And then I'm going to go over here and eat this little orange. And then if I get to these little yellow dots, then I get to those too. But I mean, he's so fast, he can't read the entire page for its entirety. But, and specifically with Squarespace, I know this since I've designed it and use it on a very minimal level, but they make it really, really easy on, because you could just highlight a text and it'll say, do you want header 1, header 2, or header 3? And it's just formatting that they already have built in, but on the back end, I'm sure that has to do with kind of the code for the page.
Yeah, that's great, because I think maybe if you're building your page yourself, you might say, oh, I want this to look better, so I'm going to make it bold or a bigger font. And that looks great to us. We can look at that and go, oh, yeah, that's a bigger thing. So that's a heading. But the search bot wants to see those heading tags.
Right.
And they go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Awesome.
And so using those, and you really want to make sure you're doing it in this hierarchical manner, like a summary of your page, so that if you removed the words on the page, so maybe we'll refer to those as the little dots in Pac-Man, remove all of those, then you see like the cherries are the heading 1 and the oranges are the heading 2, and it makes sense, like which ones are the headings and then which ones are the heading 2.
Got it.
And you're using them in order.
I love that. And that's easy. It's organized for my brain to say, okay, this is an organized way that I can approach this task. It's an important project for my business. It feels overwhelming, but if I can break this down and I can get it organized, then I'm more likely to, 1, do it, and 2, accomplish and finish it.
Yeah, totally. That's great.
Okay, so if we right click on the page and we click view page source, and then what are the different kind of components within the SEO that we'll see? And I know that it'll get really complicated, but what are like the really main ones that we should focus on?
Sure. So we talked about the headings. Those are one. The most important, I think, is the site title.
Okay.
And so this is what your website is all about. And when I was looking at the company that I work for, Next Highest Good, the site title was Next Highest Good. And if I were the search bot, I'd be like, are you taking me to heaven? Is this meditation? Like, I don't know what this is. So we really want to have in there professional organizing, Next Highest Good, possibly also professional organizing, zero waste, Next Highest Good, but really getting those things in there about what is it you're going to find on this website. Right. And so I think because we call things different things. And so maybe on your website, you might have it as your name, Jennifer Burnham. That could be the site title. So you'll want to look at that and say, okay, yes, that is me. And some people know me by name because I'm out there doing webinars and I've got blogs and people are searching my name, but they're also searching for my services. So having that as part of your site title. And then similarly, I think on each page, you're going to have a page title. And so on a website where you're offering services, maybe you have like an about page where you're meeting the person. So going back to Next Highest Good, the page I think was called Meet Lauren. Well, that's great. Laurens are nice people, but like, who is Lauren? And so we changed it to Meet a Professional Organizer - Lauren. So you have her name, having the page title services, nice, but what services are they? Professional organizing services. So making that the title of that page. So really getting more specific on what type of services you're offering, what type of product you're offering when you're titling those pages.
I love that.
Yeah, so that's a really big one.
Or about Jennifer, and maybe it's like about a professional organizer or about a simplicity coach.
Totally, exactly, yeah. And so getting those words in there that the people are looking for. The next one would be the meta description. Another one of these jargony words, like why is it called a meta description? It is. This is basically a couple sentences describing what the page is about, because in the title you can only use X number of characters. The description you can use a certain number of like a couple sentences. So yeah, if I looked at your site and your meta description for the homepage says, I help women return to themselves by unearthing talents, gifts that have been lost in the murky, muddy waters of life, which is lovely. I'm like, yes, I want that. But I'm not entirely sure that I would be searching for these things. Like, I've lost my gifts, or my life is murky. Like, these aren't the things I maybe are searching for when I'm looking for you. So finding ways to integrate some of the things that you do, the coaching aspect.
Mm-hmm.
I coach women to return to themselves. Could be one quick way of doing this, but you can find other ways as well to update this, to be integrating more of those words people have in their head when they're looking for you.
I love that too. It's fine if on the page maybe it says that, but the optimized aspect, it doesn't have to be so poetic. It needs to be pretty
Yes.
literal.
Yes. Yes. And one thing to note about this is you don't want to put like organizational coach, estate sales. You want it to be a sentence
Okay.
that captures what the page is about. It's not a place to just like put in 5 keywords and go. So I would try to make it a sentence. But yes, being less poetic and leaving the poetic stuff for the website. So when people arrive there, they see that and be like, oh yeah, this is the person I want to help me.
Mm-hmm.
But first they have to find your website, and they find you by connecting to the keywords that appear in the search result page. Because they have, when you're searching, you have in your head, I'm looking for a coach. I'm looking for a life coach. So they have the words life coach in their head. So they're scanning, looking for life coach. And if that's not popping up, then they probably won't click on your site. So you really want to incorporate the words that people are looking for.
And one of the things that when we were doing a little demonstration, and I know we're going to do that at the end, but so when you search Google, for example, then you have let me make sure I'm saying this right. The site title shows up.
Mm-hmm.
And then underneath it might be the URL.
Yeah.
And then underneath that is the meta description for that page.
It might be. So okay. Google will, and probably Bing as well, the search engine will look at the content of your page and try to pull out a section that has the keywords you're searching on and put that there, and then they'll bold those words. Yeah. So you'll notice this happening. But if it doesn't find the keywords, then I believe it will use the meta description, and maybe it will use the meta description anyways. But yes, so it may show up there.
That's good to think about too, because if you like the sentence aspect, what do you want that sentence to say, and how do you want it to portray your service or the page in particular that you're doing this kind of SEO on? Because it could show up in a search engine, and I want to, one, make sure I don't look like an idiot, but two, I want to make sure that it's captivating for someone to click on.
Totally, exactly. And it provides them a bit more information. It's like the carrot is organizational coach / Jennifer Burnham. And then they're like, oh, okay, organizational coach. Let's read a little bit more. And then you describe a bit more about your services.
Got it.
And that would be the meta description.
And then do you think that that might be a good time to also, if it's appropriate, talk about who you work with? So let's say, for example, with organizing and home services, I really focus a lot with empty nesters or almost empty nesters. But that, I don't know that an empty nester would be like, I'm an empty nester and I'm looking to get organized. So they might not be searching for that.
That is a great question. Yeah, I don't know. I do not know.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know how empty nesters think, and yes, what they're searching for. It's a good question.
Yeah, or maybe like, well, and that's the part, the brainstorming aspect. Like if I was going to break this project down into different tasks, I would probably spend at least an hour on a day all by itself without doing more SEO work, just thinking about keywords, who do I work with, what they might be searching for, just because that, I think doing all this is really great, but if you don't do that part of it, which is probably the hardest, then you're still not going to be optimized.
Yeah, totally. And I think, yeah, we should talk more about keywords. There's one last, or a couple more of the like on page things maybe we can chat about, and then let's maybe dive into keywords.
Sounds good.
So another is image descriptions. So we talked about this before, that the bot doesn't see pictures, It just sees this blob that it knows is a picture, but it doesn't know what it's a picture of. So you want to describe those pictures. And so one example is like if you have a home organizing business and maybe you show a photo of an organized kitchen, then say personal organizers can organize your kitchen could be the description of that. And yeah, maybe there's a picture of you on your website. So you could say, I'm an organizational coach in action, something like this, so that they know what the photo is of.
It seems like that would be almost an area that is overlooked, but also really easy to kind of get in there with the bots, and you're like dangling another carrot for them, which it's like low-hanging fruit, basically.
Yeah, I think, yeah, these on-page things are really low-hanging fruit. Like you can go in and chain up, and yeah, it's pretty easy to do these. And then the last one is, and maybe we'll talk about this later as well, because linking is a big thing, but the links on your page, you'll want to be mindful of the words you're using in those links. So I see commonly people saying, click here, and here is the link. So that's basically telling the Google bot that like, here's a page about here, but it's actually the page about your services. So you have the sentences like, to sign up for my services, click here. Instead, you want to link from the word services. So the bot knows, oh, this page I'm going to is about services. So this is another place where you want to integrate some of those keywords.
Yeah, and I've done that too, where it's like click here, and then I'll highlight click here, and that's the hyperlink.
It's super common. It was one of my mantras. No click here, no click here.
I'm gonna add that to my mantra. No click here. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the keywords, because that's really the bread and butter of the optimization, because it's matching keywords on your website with keywords that someone might be searching, and then Google says, oh, I found you a match or a bunch. You should click on this person. So when I think about keywords, I get really, I just have a hard time with that. Just like I said before, if I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to add almost empty nester. Well, that's probably not how that person is going to, like, I don't Google things and say, a Gen Wire looking for a painter.
Right.
So what are some tips or things that we can try? Maybe that's different programs out there. I know we had talked about Google Trends. I know on different websites and analytics, we're not going to get too much into the Google Analytics today, but how can we start to really identify some of those keywords, and then how do we sprinkle them in so where it's not too much, but it's not too little?
Yes, totally. So yeah, one of them is brainstorming. So sitting down and thinking about this. You can even use the search engine to help you. So as you start typing, you'll see that suggestions are populated. These are the popular things people are searching on. So, so you can try typing different things. Like you could type coach and see maybe like what's put afterwards. Do we see like professional, life, business? Like what are the ways that people are finishing that? Yeah, you could try searching kids gone to college. And then like, what's after that? Do they have like professional organizer? I don't know. These are things you can try out. Or empty nester, and then like what comes after that, and seeing that maybe people are searching in this way. So that's one way. You can ask your customers, like some of your previous customers, how did you find me when you were looking for my services? If you have any customers that might spend some time and give you a couple of keywords that way, that could be one. Then there are some tools as well. So one, you mentioned the Google Trends, and this is interesting to understand popularity of different keywords. So once you have sort of your list, you can start comparing them. So you could compare business coach to life coach to organizational coach to personal organizer to small business coach, and see sort of which ones are more popular. And then the ones that are more popular, if they really apply to you, use those, but then also sprinkle in the other ones, because they talk about the long tail of search. So there's like, people are searching some things a lot, and then they're searching other things a little, and it's very, very long. So you want to be able to capture all of them, because even though there's only a few people searching way out there, there's still a decent number of people. Right. So not just using the same word over and over, but like altering your words a bit. Then I think that there's ways, possibly in like Squarespace, maybe in Wix, I'm not sure. They might help you understand some of the keywords that are driving traffic. You may need to integrate with the Google Search Console or Bing Webmaster Tools. To do this, you have to do a little verification process. That seems complicated at first, but I'm pretty sure like Squarespace will walk you through it. But it's basically putting a little bit of code on your website to say, I own this, because they don't want anyone being able to go in and put in someone's website and get all this data about what keywords are driving traffic to it. Where is it ranking? Because then you just go look at all your competitors. So yeah, integrating with Google Search Console is great. Then you get to know what keywords are driving traffic to you and where you're positioned. So are you in the first position or the 25th position? How many times you show up. So it gives you impressions. So this is like the number of times, another jargony word, a number of times that you show up on someone's screen.
Okay.
And then it gives you the number of clicks that you get. So you can see how many times people actually clicked on your website. Right. And then you get something called the CTR, or the click-through rate, which is basically those clicks divided by the impressions. So it's how many times did someone see you and how many times did they click? So the number of clicks over the number of times they saw you. And so what you really want to do is drive that click-through rate up, because you don't want a bunch of people seeing your website but not clicking. That means that either they're using keywords that don't apply to your website and they're like, why is this showing up? Or they're or perhaps you haven't like used those keywords well in your website. So maybe they're seeing like murky, muddy water instead of I'm a organizational coach. Right. Yeah. So those are two good things. And then a final tool is called the Keyword Planner.
Okay.
And this helps with discovery. So it's a tool that's put out by Google for their advertisers. And so advertisers are doing very similar with things with keywords. They're trying to figure out what keywords should I show an ad for. And so this keyword planner allows you to sort of expand your horizon. So you can put in the word organizational coach, and then it will give you a list of different words that are similar to that. Okay. And their popularity. So it helps you understand, so this helps you go, oh, this is how people think about this subject. And you can see like which are the most popular of the keywords for that. Yeah. But to do this, it's more overhead. You need to sign up for an AdWords account and figure out how to use this tool that isn't the most user-friendly. But if you want to take a couple hours to dive in there, it can be very interesting.
And the thing about Squarespace that I do like is when I first signed up on Squarespace, I was very overwhelmed at how all of that worked. But I'm probably 2 years in now, and I find it to be really easy. It's a lot like MailChimp and the drag and drop, and you move things around. And once you really get the hang of the design of it, of how you can make the page really attractive, really cute, then it's really not that hard. But the best part is that the back end is so intuitive to be able to go in and change. And I even added, talking about verifying, I was able to add a Facebook pixel. It sounds very complicated. It was literally 5 minutes. And apparently, and because they walk you through it, and they have so many websites that they have all the things that you need to do within Squarespace and within Facebook, and they just work really well together. But I'm still learning, like, now what, but apparently the two of them talk. So if someone was on Facebook, clicked my website, then Facebook can kind of track the behavior on my site, so then I can determine, well, maybe I'm leading them to a dead end, or and I used to blog. So before I really had any business, I just wrote content because I had to fill my time with something. And then I would put it on Pinterest back when that was kind of new. And I would look at what was happening within the clicks. And that was always so fascinating to me, that people would click, but then they would leave. And so I know, the longer they're there, the better they are, or at least if you can capture them with something like a lead magnet. It's always really helpful. At least if they're interested, then you can try and get an email address from them. But
Yeah.
I am a big fan of Squarespace, and how easy it is, and their help section is really, it's awesome. I couldn't figure out how to get a drop down menu.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it took us it was my assistant and I, when we figured it out in about 5 minutes. And by week,
Wow.
pretty much
Great.
she. But it's just really, really helpful. So if you don't have a website, or you have an old website, don't be afraid to look at Squarespace. Because I know sometimes when you get it designed, and then they could design it on a Joomla platform, and then you have it can be complicated on the back end, because it's definitely not intuitive. So my 2 cents on that.
Awesome.
Now, what about location?
Yeah.
Because we talked about this too. If you offer a location-based service or product.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this was something that was a bit new that I discovered, or I guess it wasn't something that I had to deal with in my job before, because we weren't location based. But oftentimes when you search, I found like people were searching professional organizer, and then Google adds this thing near me.
Mm-hmm.
And so people then click that. It was pretty popular. And then this map appears, and it's got some services listed. And I'm like, how do you show up there? I want to be there. And I found we weren't on that map. And so it was a matter. So what I did is I read the Squarespace documentation, and it explained that you want to create a contact us page, or somewhere have your business information like in the footer. And so we did that, and it actually worked. We started showing up more on the map. So that's something to do. I don't know exactly how to do that. I just read the help stuff, and then I passed it on to the owner of the company. I was like, here, you should do this. And she figured it out.
It is really easy, especially on Squarespace. On their contact page, you can add like a map, like an address, or even just a general location, and it's literally just a drag and drop field. It's pretty easy. So that's something that I'm going to have to look into, because I've done that before. I've searched for like vegan restaurants, and then near me shows up, and you click on it, and there's a map, and you're like, oh, well, these are all the vegan restaurants near me. There's probably more, but those are only the ones that show up.
Yes, exactly.
I love that. Now, when I started doing a little bit of research into search engine optimization for our webinar, I came across Google indexing, and I did just like this much reading, and it basically said that you should index your website, and you should submit it maybe often.
Yeah. So the indexing, I think of it kind of, and maybe this is too old of an analogy, so let me know, but like when you used to go to the library when I was a kid, and there'd be the card catalog, and you would like look through it, and everything had, so I kind of think of the Google index as that, organized in a different way, but like every page has its card. And so basically how it works is the search bot goes and visits pages to see if they've changed. If you have a very popular website, it will come visit your website a lot. If you have a less popular website, it's not going to come as often. So that means that if you are changing anything on your site, if you're making major changes, you're adding new content, and you're a small business, you probably want to submit it for indexing. However, to do this, I believe you have to sign up for the Google Search Console and Bing Webmaster Tools. So there is some overhead towards doing this. But once you get a hang of it, it's pretty easy. Click a few buttons, put in the URL of the new content or whatever you want to be indexed. And the bot, Mr. Pac-Man, will come, or Ms. Pac-Man, whoever they may be that day. will come and look at your page and gobble it up and put it in their organizational pattern.
So this was a light bulb moment for me just now.
Okay.
So I write a newsletter every week, and I've been doing this consistently for over a year. Well, my assistant and I have talked about changing the flow. So perhaps I write the blog post first and then later, because the way that I have my blog set up is that there aren't subscribers. So if I write a post, it's not necessarily being pushed out to anyone. So let's say I just write it, same content. I write it on Monday and I send it out to my newsletter on Tuesday. Well, in the newsletter, we should have, as other folks do, I've seen this, click to read, like to finish reading. So people are visiting the site more often.
Yeah, that might be helpful. I haven't thought about this. I don't know for sure but yeah, yes, that's probably useful.
Yeah. And so
That's useful.
Yeah, I've a couple of newsletters that I'm on, and they're not necessarily writing like a full newsletter. They're giving you, the summary or the first two paragraphs, and then they'll have a little button that says click to finish reading.
Yeah.
And there might not be anything on the page or the website, and it's, as the end user, I don't find it to be very frustrating, but it is making that site a little bit more popular if people are actually clicking through and reading it anyways.
And you're getting them onto your site. So regardless of SEO, you're getting them onto your site, and then they might go, oh, what's this? And they might go read more content.
Yeah.
So I think my guess is that's the major reason to do it, is to get people onto your site. And hopefully there's ways such that you can maybe link directly to where they would continue reading.
Right.
Because you can link to headers sometimes, or you can add these anchor links with I think it's called anchor link. I'm not sure, but it's a hashtag and then a word, and you put that into your link, and then you can link directly to a section.
That's amazing.
So that, because you don't want to maybe land them at the top of the page and then they're like, wait, I already read all this. Try to land them where they would continue reading.
Yeah, I've never even understood what an anchor link was, and so I don't use it.
I think that's what it's called. I should double check that.
Okay. Well, if that changes, we'll put that in the comments for
okay.
Now, what about a site map? And so I love the idea of a site map because it sounds very organized, but do you need it? Do you, like, if you're going to do a site on Squarespace, is that something that you also have to do? Just a little bit of detail on what that is.
Yeah, I think they're really good for helping the search engine, the bot, know what's on your website. So the bot will arrive to one page on your website. Maybe it found you by crawling someone else's page who then links to you. So it lands on your services page, and then it goes through there, and then it's going to go and try clicking on all the different links that you have, like knocking on doors. Can I get through here? Yes. Okay, here's another page, and then we'll go to your homepage, and then from the homepage it'll go here and it'll go there. So this is how it's going to find your site. It may not understand like the overall structure of your site, and it may not find all the pages, and so this helps it find all the pages.
Okay. Yeah. Wow, that sounds important. Now, what about links? Because you already talked about the links from other people to you that you haven't paid for, that Google says, oh, they're a very good business. They're popular and they're legit, so we're going to bring them up. But I know we had also talked about linking within post. And so is that helpful? Is that not helpful? Is that something that you should consider if you're writing, for example, one blog post about meal planning, and then last year you wrote a blog post with a free meal planner? Should you connect the two of those?
Yeah, you definitely can. I think, as we just talked about how the bot goes through your site, it'll find more pages this way. The more you're linking between pages, then it will find this additional content. It will also understand that like those two pages are linked. So if you link from this page about meal planning to a meal plan, it'll be like, oh, those are somehow linked together. So I think it helps with that as well. So I think you want to be somewhat organized in the way that you do this, and not just like link from every page to every page, because then maybe the bot will get a little confused. But
Agreed.
definitely linking between your pages is useful. One, for your users, because if you're on your homepage and you're offering out your services, and then you can have a link that says, here, contact me about my services. Then you could take them to the contact page, or want to learn more about my services, link to the services page. So it also helps your users. And then the key thing here is to remember, when you are linking, avoid the click here links. Have a services link, or a consultation link, or a contact me link, something like that.
Now, with buttons seem to be popular, does the bot see a button as like a image?
I don't know.
Okay. And that's something new I could look at, but that was something that I just thought about. A lot of times I'll use a button instead of the words, and so I wonder how the Pac-Man reads the button. But again, still, I wouldn't have the button say click here, but
do you know, for Squarespace, because the next highest good website is written on Square, or uses Squarespace, those buttons, you do see the words in the code of the page. So there, the bot is seeing the words. And maybe it's just has some sort of button class around it to make it look different, but the words are showing up in the code of the page. I don't know about if you're building your own website, or maybe other website builders, if they do it differently, but yeah, Squarespace seems to be pretty smart about that.
Now, if someone has watched to this point and said, okay, I have got to add this project to my list, and they're not on like a Wix or a Squarespace, then hopefully they'll be able to either, one, contact their designer and at least tell them what they want it to say. So now they have their list of what to do. If a designer isn't necessarily a professional in search engine, they know how to add these words and these sentences and these keywords. But and otherwise, maybe if they don't, a professional would be helpful. But I know it's like with Instagram and Facebook, you can really get going with hiring a professional for that. But if you don't already know some basics, you might be spending a lot of money and not getting a lot of return out of it.
Yes. Yeah. And there is so Google Search Console is the one we were talking about before, that helps you understand where clicks are coming from on Google, what keywords, blah, blah, blah. They have an entire help site, and they have a section, a page dedicated to, like, do you need to hire a professional? And it walks you through that. Sort of the questions to ask yourself, and how, I don't know that they necessarily recommend certain professionals, but they help you walk through whether or not it's a good idea to hire someone.
Like, do I need this? And maybe some questions to ask a professional. He says that they'd be happy to optimize my website for $10,000.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love it. Okay, so could we do just a little bit of demo?
Sure.
Where you share your screen and then walk us through a little bit of this, the site title and the meta descriptions?
Yeah, let's do it. Okay. Share screen. There's that. Share. Okay.
Perfect.
Can you see okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. So this is what I used constantly at work, and what I used when I wanted to refresh myself on the world of SEO. When I came back to it to look at the website for the company I work for. It's called Starter Guide. Who's it for? People who own, manage, monetize, or promote online content on Google search. So it's for a lot of people. And so it goes through a bunch of different things. It's got a glossary, how to figure out if you're on Google, blah, 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 blah. So great place to go get your feet wet, and really it covers a lot of the content that we've covered today if you want to read instead of listen.
Okay.
Yeah. Then we talk about some of the stuff we talked about today. So we mentioned the right click, view page source.
Okay.
So here's the mumbo jumbo that the bot is seeing. And so some of the things you want to look for are the title, highlighted in blue there.
Mhm.
So here you can see we've got professional organizer, dash zero waste, dash next highest good. And before this just said next highest good, and it didn't actually say what next highest good was doing. So good thing to do there. Then if we come down here, you can see this thing that says meta name description. So we're professional organizers with a passion for zero waste. Think of how good it'll feel when everything is finally in its place. You'll be able to do anything besides cleaning and organizing. So we've used the word organizing in there a few times, but it doesn't feel unnatural. We have professional organizer in there. We've got the zero waste thing, but we've also got some of the ideals of what Lauren's business does. And so, yeah, there's that example as well.
And then is there any, can you show us where the alt text would be for an image if you see?
Yeah, these are not all done, but here's one you can see. So yeah, so you can see that this is an image, IMG SRC.
Okay.
Do you see that in blue highlighted?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this is an image. And then the alt text is professional organizer, zero waste, next highest good Inc. And I can click on this. So that's her logo. And if we go back to the page, it's this in the upper right-hand corner, this logo.
So let's say someone's blogging, for example, because that's the easiest thing. If I'm going to add a photo to a blog, then the alt text is basically the photo name when I'm uploading it. Is that correct?
Right. So, so yeah, here is the blog. We have this picture of a kid playing with toys. So you'd want to say kid playing with toys or whatever we think might be useful in this.
Okay.
Further down, I think we have a picture. Yeah, this is Chad. So we'd say Chad Christensen of SF Smiles. And people who are interested in SF Smiles and Chad would know that's who, or the bot would know who this is.
Yeah, so that would show up in a search if someone was searching for him.
It wouldn't show up in a search, but it would help the bot know that this page, because sometimes we have pages that are a lot of images and like not as much text. So it helps the bot know like what this image is and then be able to, yeah, just understand what the image is. Yeah.
And I've even created some images in Canva where I wanted them to sort of look like a button, but so let's talk about the meal plan and maybe renaming it and saying like free meal planner or download free meal planner instead of just meal planner.
Yes. If it's the button to download it, definitely do that. If it's just an image of a meal plan, then I don't think I would call that download because you can't actually download it unless you click on it and it does download.
Got it.
Yeah. So you definitely want to, say what the image is and not offer superfluous things that aren't offered. Yeah. Here's an example. Let me close out some of these. So here's the services page. Here's one of those buttons. And I think it used to say click here. So we changed that to schedule a consultation because if you click on this, it goes to the page to contact. So that's an example of getting rid of click here. Another example is further down below. Here, schedule your no obligation consultation today.
Got it.
Maybe today doesn't need to be linked here, schedule your no obligation consultation but you get the idea that instead of having schedule your no obligation here and the link text says here, you have the link text, what's in yellow here, as the description of what's going to happen on that next page.
Yeah, that, and even, meet Lauren down there where
yes, exactly.
Versus
and this could
about us.
Yeah. And maybe this could say like, or it could even be better and be like, meet Lauren. She calls herself CEO, Chief Expert Organizer.
Love it.
Yeah, so she could put that there, which would be
Yeah,
great because you'd get the word organizer in there.
that would
So,
be
so
great.
that would be a way to improve that.
Meet
Yeah,
Lauren, Chief Executive Organizer. That would be
yeah,
awesome.
exactly. Yeah. And then down here, you can see headquartered in San Francisco, serving clients across the Bay Area. So we got some location in there.
Yeah, I've got to write that back down because that was really helpful about the location, putting it in the footer or on the about page or the contact.
Yeah. And then what this helps for is when you're searching professional organizer, San Francisco Bay Area, and you get all these places.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're finally showing up. Yay.
Very exciting.
Along with all the others.
And this may not be a question appropriate for this webinar, but I'm curious, where they have the stars, those
Yes.
are reviews, I'm guessing, on Google?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
Um,
It doesn't look like they're
yeah.
necessarily giving them,
Yeah.
like a precedence over the others, but I did notice that. It's like,
Yeah, I mean, they're not giving an order precedence, but the stars really stand out. So, so I think they draw your eye and you go, oh, I'm going to go to that one. So they're getting the precedence because really, like when the person's searching, they're like searching professional organizer and they're like, okay, professional organizer. Okay, these are all professional organizers, but ooh, stars. I'm going to click on that one. So I think the stars are pretty useful. To really draw people's eyes in.
Yeah,
I don't have any data to back that up, but that's what my gut tells me.
Well, I had a friend who is an interior designer in Charlotte, and she has put in a lot of emphasis and a lot of effort in getting reviews on House because she knows that that's one of the main search engines that clients were using to find her. And she was always up front because she had a ton of reviews and she was called a lot. And I used this as well with Angie's List back when I actually did reviews and was on it a little bit more than I am now, but it did make a difference. So I imagine that even with Google that this would make a difference. But then of course my next question is, well, how do you get a review left on Google? So you probably have to be on there somewhere, and I don't know if that's worthy of today's webinar.
Write a review. As easy as that. I didn't know, I just clicked. Yeah, looks like anyone can write a review for anybody.
And as a business owner, especially as a service is ending, there's kind of the funnels, and I hate those words because they feel so masculine and definitely not personal, but yeah, the sales, or not even sales, but the marketing, and then the sales, and then the onboarding, and then you're serving them, and then after, what happens? And with small businesses in particular, we tend to be going so fast and also so focused on the getting of the clients and then the selling and the serving, that we sort of forget about that last part. But when we add that as just another last step of the service of asking for a review, my tip would be to decide where you want reviews. And if it's Google, then send them straight to Google and have them write a review. If it's Angie's List, only send them to the place where you want them to write a review. But I know it makes a really big difference. You can even do it in Facebook. We're not talking about Facebook today, but this is fantastic. I'm going to start sending it out to everybody.
And then I think my friend who I chatted with, she owns a landscaping business, and she says that people use Yelp a lot around here. She was like, I think word of mouth or like Yelp is really popular, and so some people will have people give reviews in Yelp. Yeah, so
that's a really good point, and I know.
But like, yeah, I mean, this person here has 10 reviews. So sorry, go ahead.
No, and well, when we travel, I only use Yelp. I don't even use Google anymore when I'm looking for restaurants.
Yeah. So I think that's the key thing, is figuring out, like, where are your customers coming from? And where do you think your customers should be coming from? Because maybe they are all coming from Yelp, but they are also searching on Google. And so if you can show up sort of, yeah. I mean, if we do like professional organizer, we have some ads. Here we've got the
and
thing, but Yelp. So people might be searching, but then going to Yelp. But then if you can show up here in these first 3, you're before Yelp.
Right.
Yeah. And then, I mean, there's also this thing called expertise.com that I think is another page that lists out different things. So I think it's important to do these searches and see who's showing up where. Here, New York Times wrote an article. We've got NAPO showing up here. So yeah, understanding who's showing up and what they're doing differently than you is important. And then there's ads. Whole nother ballgame.
Section up there with the videos are interesting too, since
video
is the new, not new, we've been there a while, but I don't think we're going away from video. So having, being able to use some keywords if you like video, and that would help as well.
Yeah. I don't know how these show up, but somehow.
Well, it looks like, the professional organizer, I'm guessing that is one of the reasons now why they might have 1,000 views, but going back to the keyword, it's so important to sprinkle those in and have them on the page source, but then to sprinkle them in if you're talking blogging on a regular basis.
Yeah. And maybe great segue into, this is Google Trends.
Okay.
So I pulled up some keywords that I thought about when I thought about what some of the things you're offering. And these may not be the ways you think about it, but I was like, let's think of all the different type of coaches there are. So we have business coach, life coach, organizational coach, personal organizer, and small business coach.
Wow.
You can search by North Carolina. So this is like people in your state looking for this, past 12 months on the web. Wow. And here you can see, actually I shouldn't scroll up too much, that life coach is the thing people are looking for the most.
Wow.
The others are pretty minuscule in comparison, but you can see some differences there. And so you can go to another day. Here, life coach and then personal organizer showed up more that day, or that week. This looks like it's by week. So this is a great way to sort of like gut check some of the keyword ideas that you brainstorm and see which ones are more popular. And then see if you identify with the ones that are more popular. I mean, you don't want to start using the one that is more popular just because it's more popular, because then you're going to end up in that situation where, yeah, you might get a lot of impressions, like your website shows up a lot, but no one's clicking because you're not actually offering that specific service.
Yeah, and because this is definitely about finding the right people who are looking for you. You don't want to be spending a lot of time with folks who aren't the ideal clientele, but I would have this is fascinating to me, that because I naturally push back on the term life coach. It just feels too broad. It feels too anybody can do it. I don't know. I get this like initial reaction that I don't want to sprinkle that in, but folks are looking for it. And if it is perhaps a part of the business and the service, then maybe I should really consider adding that in. But this is helpful.
Yeah, and so maybe you add it in and you say, I'm a life coach who, or I'm like a life coach, but so that, because I don't know that people are necessarily thinking of, like, they don't know what an organizational coach is necessarily. So they're looking for life coach, but you are the type of life coach that does X, Y, and Z. And so explaining to them in their own terms, you think I'm a life coach, but this is what I am. And so helping to define what you are in their eyes using their words.
Yeah. And I mean, there's no one searching for a small business coach.
Yeah, I was surprised about that. Well, here's one. Is there?
Yeah.
11 this week. The beginning of January of this year. Small business coaches.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, because this is really so helpful and important for all businesses who are operating on a smaller scale with a smaller budget. They're not, 100 employees with $5 million in revenue. You're looking at how am I know these things are important. I know I should have a website. I know it should look pretty. You want it to be attractive, but then on the back end, if it's also not easily found, if someone can't find me, then you're really sort of pushing a big boulder up a hill, all because it's overwhelming and it feels too complicated and it's difficult to understand. But this really breaks it down in such an easy to digestible way that I know for me, I'm definitely going to do this after our call.
Awesome.
Well, this has been amazing. Do you want to add any 2 cents that maybe we didn't get to talk about? I feel like we covered quite a bit, but based on just your knowledge, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, no, I feel like we covered a lot of, the low-hanging fruit, the things that you can dive in and do. So maybe sort of 3 things to remember at the end. Some of this all, like, we threw a lot at you. What are the key things?
Mm-hmm.
Before deciding how much you're going to jump in and do this, think about, are my customers finding me walking down the street,
Mm-hmm.
or are they searching for my services or product on the internet? So your investment level should match how you think your customers are trying to find you.
Mm-hmm.
And then, really being successful at this is being considered a reputable source. So, and the cornerstone to that is just writing really good content that's interesting, and mirrors what your customers are looking for. You don't want to ever do anything that feels not sincere.
Mm-hmm.
So everything should feel good. You don't want to just like stuff a bunch of keywords in. You don't want to use keywords that don't match with what you're offering. You don't want to pay someone to link to your site. So it should be sincere and write great content. And then it's sort of like I also remember the "If you build it, they will come," that movie with Tom Hanks. It's like that. Build a great site, people will come.
Yeah.
It's not that easy, but I like to think of it that way.
Yeah.
And then, on your page, make sure each page has a unique title,
Mm-hmm.
a unique meta description. All images have descriptions, and all the links to other pages have descriptive link text. No click here.
Think
so
about Pac-Man.
Yes, Pac-Man. Yes.
Going through. And I will add to just stay open-minded to how people may be finding you or where people are. Just because I think people might not be searching for a coach on Yelp doesn't mean that they aren't actually doing that. I was always very surprised at how many contacts I got from Angie's List. And if I were to put that in like a little funnel to say, I got 100 people who contacted me from Angie's List, about 80% converted to clients. And I would say of the 80, probably 60 was a perfect fit. And I wasn't actually paying Angie's List. So just stay open-minded too on where where should I be? What should I have? You've got your website, have good content, but really stay open-minded too in some of these other areas, and see if it works. Give it some time.
Yeah, I feel like for like big investments, which coaching is a big investment, people do want to hear from others. Mm-hmm. Same with professional organizing. It's not like you're buying an ice cream, and if the ice cream, you don't like it,
oh well.
It's a bigger investment. And so I do think that a lot of these sites like Yelp and Angie's List do drive a lot of traffic, as well as the word of mouth. So getting those reviews can be helpful.
Yeah, and I don't know that you can put them on a website, but I'm not sure that they have the same effect as an actual review type of service like Angie's List, Yelp, House, wherever folks might be. And if you are, so I know I loved when you did the search for the professional organizers in San Francisco, how different things showed up, even different articles. So in Charlotte, there are a couple companies like Charlotte Agenda and since I'm kind of out of the loop. There's a couple, and they will run these type of articles where it's sort of a popularity contest. At least that's how it feels. But it can be really helpful in that you will show up if someone's looking for, say, an in-home organizer, professional organizer in Charlotte, because based on their search engine, that's their optimization.
Yeah.
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 Well, this
Yeah.
has been amazing, and
I'm
I
glad.
learned a ton, and I really, really appreciate you coming on and sharing all of this, all of the knowledge and the links and the demo. This has just been great. So thank
Sure.
you so much.
You are so, so welcome. It's been fun.
Fun is one way to describe it.
Yes.
Well, thank you again, and I hope that if you're watching that you got as much out of this as I did, because I think it's important. I don't think it's as complicated as our head makes it out to be, but it is something that we can all do ourselves. So thank you again, Alexa.
You're welcome.
Okay, hang on.